Welcome back! Heroes of the Storm. You've got new things. You've got new things, and we're here to talk about those new things. I'm Garrett, here as always with Kyle Fergusson, and this is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, the game that just won't quit. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. This is pretty exciting. There is a massive patch at the very front here. I want to say we are going to attempt to control ourselves today. We are going to let you know the over themes, the general. We'll go a little bit deep on particulars, but it's a PTR patch, so it'll still be going live next week. We're not going to concern ourselves with that too much. The little kind of nitpicky balance, that'll happen next week. This show is all about the big strokes.
Yeah, one might say the broad strokes. We're just going to paint some broad strokes. And I knew I had a paintbrush nearby for the visual cue for the audience that watches on video. So there you go. There's your... I brought props, Kyle. That's how excited I am.
Free brush.
Free brush?
For the audience, they got to see a free brush.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no, this is left over from art school days, so this definitely was not free.
No, let me, if that's true. Now, should we just enjoy ourselves a little bit, Garrett? I mean, we are getting, spoiler alert, the Overwatch event, which means we get to say more Overwatch content than Overwatch. We get to say more patches than World of Warcraft. Like, this is happy days.
This is happy days. This is happy. Listen, as someone who enjoys most of the other games put out by one Blizzard Entertainment, I don't want to dump on them too hard, but I will say, Kyle, at the moment, it's not a very high bar to clear. But boy, oh boy, is this a sizable patch.
Yes.
It's a biggin. So much so that we had to have like a meeting earlier today to say, hey, how do we want to cover this? Because it's just, there's simply too much. Like if we sat here and just wanted to go talent by talent, we're going to bore you all to death. Like it's going to be too technical. And so, yeah, that's why today we're going to talk about the broad strokes, kind of the story of what's coming, heroes to keep an eye on, heroes to maybe not worry about so much anymore because of the nerfs that certain heroes will be receiving, and kind of what the next meta of Heroes of the Storm just might look like. And then next week, we'll probably get pretty number crunchy. And we'll get into, all right, exactly how much damage is Raynor losing on his basic attack. Today, we'll probably see something more like, yeah, Raynor's losing some damage on his basic attack, but we're not going to get into specifics. So
Exactly. Plus, there are other changes that didn't make it in this patch on the PTR, but are said to be coming with the actual patch itself. And those weren't quite a bit of talking about because those are game changes.
Yeah, exactly. I will tell you what I would like to get specific about, though, and that's my thanks for our lovely patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN.
Nice.
Yeah, but I just want to be real specific that I am very thankful, y'all. Independent show. We do this ourselves. Kyle, I saw you in there, man. You were in there this morning. It was the digital podcast show notes equivalent of like waking up in the morning, looking out the farm window and seeing you just like plowing you're just like pulling something heavy behind you and planting new crops, man, just tending to the fields. The amount of work you put into this to try and make it conversational and easily understandable. I applaud you, sir. I saw you putting in your hours this morning.
Thank you.
So if you'd like to reward Kyle for those hours, and, I do some work too. Sometimes. It depends. Head on over to patreon.com/ITN, where you're going to get access to our Discord. You'll be able to sign up for our monthly game nights with our patrons. You'll get an ad-free version of the feed. We've got a sponsor to thank later, as a matter of fact. But on this episode, we just want to give a shout out to Libertine and Jason S., because those two upped their pledges this past week. Not only have they been patrons for a while, they decided they wanted to give us a raise. So thank you, Libertine and Jason S. And everyone listening out there, if you want to become one of our many wonderful bosses on the Patreon, go check it out. Patreon.com/ITN. But now, Kyle, we have legitimate Heroes of the Storm news to discuss. So let's get into it.
Boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Point me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
I will stay a while, but I'm going to be talking and not so much listening, except when Kyle's talking, because that would be rude.
Good on you.
Yeah, so we got a patch. It's on the PTR right now. There's nothing stopping anyone within the sound of my voice from going and updating their PTR. I have no idea why, but my computer forgot where it was installed. It was still there. I just had to go navigate it and find it. And then it was like, oh, damn, there's an update. And like, a few minutes later, I was in there testing. I went and tested the Valla rework because I find that one particularly fascinating. But it's on there right now. We can go test it. We're assuming Tuesday?
We're not sure exactly when this PTR is going live. I'm not entirely sure what it is they're testing without a new hero. But if you knew about a bug, and there have been bugs in this game, like ETC's Crowd Surfer since like 2016, that's gone. Congratulations, Garrett. Your Misha charge thing is gone. That's fixed.
Thank God, because it sounds like I'm going to be playing a lot of Rexar again very soon for reasons we'll get into.
And Falstad's fixed. So maybe they're just digging for some additional bugs. Maybe this lone talent thing we're talking about was a lot of background work. Either way, we are speeding towards the end of Christmas and this new Overwatch event.
Yes, as everyone knows, Christmas ends in the summer, and it looks like we've arrived.
There is a conversation.
It's going to end very soon, Kyle. I need to get all of the rest of my Christmas jokes out of the way because it does not look like we are actually going to get to Christmas in July, which if you had asked me a week ago, I was not joking. I legitimately thought we were heading towards Christmas in July.
I feel you. There is a lot of frustration, a lot of emotion. Let's call it feelings. That's not as strong. But people have a lot of feelings about this patch, and it's worth talking about a little bit here. There are 5 reworks in this thing. There is a new system of talents called lone talents. There are some talents that are baked in, like Stitch's hook range, upon getting to level 13. All of those things I can imagine are not as beautiful as like drag and dropping the number 13 over on the Stitch's icon and bam, it now knows that's connected and unlocks at a certain level.
I mean, we all know that you code World of Warcraft, you code Heroes of the Storm through a Squarespace interface.
You just set up the boxes, it just works, and I go around clicking escape on all your websites to see if you're using Squarespace.
Not sponsored, by the way. Unless you're listening, Squarespace, hit us up. Do use it.
We're willing.
Yeah.
My website's made that. You can hit escape there if you want.
Good luck getting in.
But
it's not a challenge, by the way.
That is a lot of content, and the reworks are directly tied to the skins. We've seen this with the old Cassia Tracer rework when we got the sort of Greek event skins.
Yeah, that's... Oh, you know what? I hadn't drawn that line, but you're absolutely correct. Is there anyone in the reworks that's not getting a new skin? I think that's an easier question to answer, because we've got Johanna, we've got Vala. Is Raynor in there getting a skin?
Yep, Raynor's getting his Soldier 76, Vala's getting Reaper, Johanna's getting Reinhardt, Stitches is getting Roadhog.
Okay, so Anduin is the odd boy king out.
Yes, Anduin is the odd one out, and that's a pretty cool little rework. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it does have some people concerned about the back cataloging for this sort of event. As we've talked about in the past, these floodgates, the damming of content does mean that it's a buzz. Everyone's going to talk about it. Big websites are going to run articles about Hero's current state, what this means. Overwatch people are going to talk about it because it all came out in one big pile. But a lot of people are upset that this wasn't piecemeal. This wasn't segmented up in order to sustain us through this past 6 months.
Which I understand. I certainly, you and I have talked just a little bit off air about this, and I do share a good amount of those feelings. At the same time, it's the kind of thing I always look at and go, listen, we are privy to such a hilariously tiny amount of how the creation of this game actually works. We have no clue. We have absolutely no idea. So we're sitting on the outside going, I saw a piece of art at BlizzConline, and I waited until May to see these skins on the PTR of the game. Why did you wait? So it's like, we don't know. Like, all that could have existed back when the Overwatch skins art was shown was just that one piece of art. They may have not even like laid a single pixel down on a 3D model somewhere to start even making these skins. We have no way of knowing that, right? And so, to bring it back around, though, to like understanding the frustration, I share that when it comes to balance updates. Because this is the kind of thing where I look at it, I'm like, we have 5 reworks here. And they're not on par, in my opinion, with what we would refer to as a rework in the past. But they're close. They're quite close. There's a lot of upheaval going on with these 5 heroes. And I think the strongest place where I go, why did we have to wait and bundle all this together is with those reworks. Because there's so many of them, and my brain hurts trying to compartmentalize it all in my head. And I just can't help but think to myself, in a perfect world, and I'm aware that this is armchair designing and I have no idea like how difficult it is to make any of this happen, but could we have maybe split this up? Could we have 2, 4 weeks ago? Could we have 2 more 4 weeks before that? Who knows? For all we know, this is just how long it took. Although I find that somewhat suspect.
My hope and my joy is that something like loan talents was the cause of this delay, and now the system is that much more free. That something as complicated as a talent being aware of how many deaths you've had since taking it needed a lot of background work, and they wanted to work those into those reworks. Therefore, we're waiting for that technology to develop. Now that we have it, other sort of talents and creativity can be online. And that's where I really want to push this today. There is number changes. There is tweaks to make the game look alive and cared for and well-watered. And then there is actually coming up with new ideas and implementing them inside the game. This, to me, shows way more dev care than simple balance changes. And that's really, really exciting. And I think we should focus on that, even though you may disagree in principle with something like loan talents. So let's dive into that.
That's a really good way to think about it, man. And I agree with you because I think had you asked me a week ago, do I think there'll be much more than kind of just standard balance shifts? I probably would have said no. That I think all we were going to get were just some number tweaks. But you're right. This goes much deeper. This still shows, I don't know, like a hunger that I don't think I was expecting from this patch. It goes deeper. It's showing a new direction. And I was kind of just expecting kind of par for the course changes. So we've mentioned loan talents multiple times. We haven't actually explained what the hell they are. These were actually teased before the PTR patch went up. Before news of the PTR patch came out, Daybringer gave a preview of loan talents, which gave us some insights into this new ability and also its design and also how it's playing into talents. The original preview that Daybringer had put up was on Johanna's reworked trait, which is now called Divine Fortress. And the way it works is that it basic attacks against enemy heroes, grant 15 physical armor for 3 seconds, stacking up to 60. But the loan part of this is just called loan. And you will now, if you go into PTR, you will see loan listed on anything that is a quote-unquote loan talent or ability. And it says, loan Johanna gains 20% maximum health, lose 5% of this bonus every time she dies. So you die 4 times and this is gone.
Right, but you're still getting the basic attacks against enemy heroes grant physical armor. You just slowly lose the 20% max health. And I do want to make it clear that this is a level 1 trait talent. So even though in the post it was brought up that it was the trait, this doesn't start with Johanna. And as far as, and I'm having trouble testing it, of course, because it's on the PTR. The try mode can be a little weird. But as far as I can tell at this point, you can die as much as you want if you haven't taken this talent yet. So some people, let's work through the fears a little bit.
Oh yeah, I don't believe this banks your deaths. I don't think if you died once before you take Divine Fortress that suddenly which is interesting, isn't it?
Well, yes, and there is perhaps some strategy. It's really fascinating on Johanna because she's very talent reliant for a lot of her power and her eventual CC and getting a kill and setup ability. But there is a strategy perhaps where you look at the enemy team and go, this looks like I'm going to die 20 times before 10. They just have the perfect comp to kill Johanna. They've got all the percent-based damage in the world. I need Falling Sword to even survive against this enemy team. So I just won't pick a talent at level 1. And I won't pick my 4, and I won't pick my 7 because I don't want my deaths to matter. But then at 10, wowee, I'm going to get 20% health and never die from that point on.
Yeah, interesting stuff. But let's bring it back to the core of what a lone talent is, right? Which is like you get a bonus and it erodes as you die.
That's neat. I disagree with the lone name, just because it's kind of spooky.
I find it extremely out of universe in its terminology. Like it just doesn't fit for me. However, it does really, really sell the concept. And I bet if I was a betting man, I would bet that was the internal debate on how to name this damn thing. I am sure it was brought up that isn't loan a little sterile and conjure up stacks of paperwork and interest rates. But at the same time, like I can you argue with it, Kyle? Like, can you think of a better word than loan to describe this sort of design?
It does increase your hesitancy. Oh, I'm going to take out a loan. Oh, I have to pay that back someday. Oh, that might have interest. I'm not sure about this idea. Whereas I would love if it was called bargain, Nexus bargain, dark bargain. But then again, bargain. Ooh, I trade my soul for power. I never have to pay it back because I already traded my soul. No big deal. Maybe they're on the right path here. The big concern for a lot of people is that they won't play the game. That there is going to be a Johanna that never wants to die, would never sacrifice themselves so the rest of the team can get away. When you're all running away at no health, everyone has 10% health. Johanna goes and sacrifices herself so others may live. Those 4 other people can still take camps, can still clear lanes. If everybody dies but Johanna, and we'll get to that in a little bit with the rework going on, she's not as valuable in that situation. And there are plenty of times where the tank might have to trade their entire life just to make a team fight happen. So some people are concerned about that.
I get that. And so to that, the furthest I think I come over to that side of the concern table is maybe Johanna wasn't the best first example. Because really that's an issue of design of the individual lone talent, not I don't think it calls into question the validity of lone talents as a whole. It's like, yeah, maybe these aren't great for tanks because tanks kind of want to die. Dying's part of the deal, being a tank. And you'd much rather have 20% max health late game than early game. It's it's receding in the wrong direction.
The other concern is, of course, that people will tilt. That Johanna doesn't think she's ever going to die. She walks into that team and dies. And now her level 1 talent is bad for the rest of the game. It doesn't have the value that it originally did. So game over, GG next is basically what Johanna's, Raynor's, Vala's, and Stitches are all going to be typing in chat.
Jerks are going to jerk.
That's kind of.
I don't think we can. Yeah. This is that. Now I am offended by that line of thinking. It's like let's not stifle evolving the game out of fear that someone's going to be mad because I took a talent that gets slightly worse when I die. Listen, man. We all been yelling at Convection Kael'thas's for years. Now there's just now we're just spreading it out. We're just spreading the anger. It's fine. Now Kael'thas can go take Convection, and there's a little less scrutiny on them because Johanna just lost 5% max health. It's okay.
And there are other talents that you might want to take when you note that you are in no danger of dying by the enemy team. In fact, if you're not in danger of dying, do you want 20% health? So I love the system. I love the idea that there are new possibilities for talents and how they can be laid out. But let's talk through some of the other ones because they gave 3 additional examples here.
Yeah, Jim Raynor is getting a reworked version of Veteran Marksman. It has a quest component where each time the primary target, I'll give him some pepper as a hero, you permanently increase its damage bonus by 0.75%. And then the lone addition to this is gain 60% bonus, give him some pepper damage. Every death reduces this bonus by 15%.
So this is kind of interesting. It's more that they're expecting Jimmy to die out there. It's just that you get an initial power spike tied to death, and as you build that quest up, you may be able to replace it.
Yeah, in theory, right? In theory, and then you got the quest. Yeah, it's an interesting way to go, and here that makes probably the most sense to me, right? Because that was a major issue with questing talents, which is there's no immediate gain unless it also had an additional bake-in in addition to what you were questing for, right? So it's an interesting way to design that. Illidan is also getting a new...
Oh, that's Valla. They pulled a little switcheroo with Demon Hunter there.
Oh, this is the Valla one. Okay. Stop being so colorful. Creed of the Hunter is this new Valla talent. Quest is every 50 basic attacks against heroes permanently increases the damage bonus of hatred by 1% to a maximum of 5%. The loan on this is you get 20% increased attack speed, and every death reduces this bonus by 5%.
Again, there are other Valla talents that you may want to do, but that does sound pretty cool if you're not going to die.
Yeah, getting a boost of attack speed. And this one's early, if I remember. I'm scrolling down to Valla to find out what level this is on. Of course, I'm not finding it quickly. But I believe this is... Yeah, oh, damn. Yeah, it's a level 1. So starting the game with 20% more attack speed on Valla is very enticing to me.
And then Stitches has second helping, but that one's at level 7.
Yeah. So Devour gains an additional charge with a 6-second cooldown between uses, and the loan on this is that if Stitches is at max health after using Devour, he gains a shield equal to 15% of his maximum health for 10 seconds. Every death reduces the shield amount by 3%, which is probably the least clean of all of the loan talents we've seen in terms of math.
Right, but does showcase again how these are affecting different aspects of the game, even though they're all related to death, which is another thing that could be changed up in the future. What if it's related to not attacking mercenary camps? Like, wouldn't that be weird? Butcher, you took a increased damage talent, but if you ever attack an uncaptured mercenary camp, you lose meat or something like that.
Oh, that'd be interesting. That'd be very interesting.
And some people are seeing these as opportunities to teach players how to play the game better, but they're optional talents, so we can't dig too much into that. Dying is not something you should be doing all the time. Increasing the punishment on death might be interesting for an educational point of view, but when we get to high-end play, when we get to tournament play, these talents are just too spooky because dying is sometimes the right thing to do. A free hearth,
yes.
A free get out of jail card for the rest of the team to run away.
Yeah, that's the hump that's hard to get over, right? It's kind of hard to argue with that. But I still think these can be interesting because every single one of them has a permanent component, right? And I come back to Raynor's as being, I think, my favorite overall design, because as you said, you kind of replace it with the quest talent that's attached to it, and the loan just kind of smooths out your kind of power spikes as you level, or just as a net gain if you don't die, right? It's just nothing but good. And I think next to that, I think Valla's is my favorite, because starting the game with more attack speed as Valla is very exciting. I'm actually a little afraid of this one personally. I think it might be a little too strong at the moment, but it's very interesting. It's very fascinating, and it's a really cool way to make Valla more impactful right out the gate.
I'm just really excited about it being attached to other things like death, or the Stitches hook being auto-attached. Fishing hook just comes online for free at level 13. You don't even have to pick it. It's not a passive on every single talent. It just happens. So the idea that we can expand this out further, that the talents are recognizing what's happening in the area. I mean, you could take a talent that says gain 2% attack speed for every level you have. And every time you level up, that attack speed increases just passively. There's so many cool options going forward. And I think tying it to death is very, very scary, but perfectly acceptable.
It's an interesting part of Heroes of the Storm to leverage that we haven't seen leverage before, not in this way anyway. We could have called it borrowed power, which is something World of Warcraft players love using as a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a keyword, a buzzword. There we go.
I have no idea what that is.
It's in Legion. It was your artifact weapon. In BFA, it was your necklace everyone hated. Things that you give back at the end of the expansion.
Oh, that's a real negative way to think of it.
I don't think it's inherently negative. I'm trying not to get sidetracked, but we've had a really good example of it, and we've had a really bad example of it. So, anyways, let's take a quick break though and thank our sponsors this week, because we have a sponsor to thank this episode. And there is no power borrowed, because if you get a pair of Bombas socks, you get to keep that pair of Bombas socks, and they are super, super comfortable. I just picked up a nice new set of tie-dye no-show socks, because again, it's summer here, it's hot. I'm wearing a lot of shorts, Kyle. I'm wearing shorts right now. What am I? What am I, a Corvette owner? I'm going to wear shorts with socks going up to my knees? No.
I just picked myself up the toddler Sesame Street gripper calf socks. So you know what I care about. Those wood floors are slippery, and those things are awesome and adorable.
That's rad, man. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying mine. I mean, they've been a supporter of Into the Nexus for a long time now, and we really appreciate their support. But if you're unaware, they also have performance socks. You know, it's getting in the summer. We're gonna, at some point, I'm gonna end up at the beach. I'm gonna have to take my shirt off. I'm working out again, Kyle. Okay. And, workout, a lot of things make workouts hard, but my socks shouldn't be part of that thing. So you should go check out Bombas's performance socks, because they are built to be nothing but comfortable and supportive. They're kind of like this wonderful mix of all of the different sock features we've talked about in the past, that make Bombas really, really comfy and just nice socks to live with every day, all mixed into one, something you want to, throw on before you go into a workout. Help you keep those blisters down. Maybe you're not pulling your socks up as much. They've got stay up technology. Arch hugging systems in socks, Kyle. What is this technology? So go check them out. They come in different styles for every sport, with specific design features that help you optimize performance and keep you comfortable no matter what you're doing. So head on over to bombas.com/Nexus today. You're going to get 20% off your first order. That's BOMBAS, bombas.com/Nexus for 20% off at bombas.com/Nexus. Get yourself a discount, support Into the Nexus in the process, and get some comfy socks for your feet. It's great. I want to see your Sesame Street socks, man.
They're cute.
Looking forward to it.
It's a win-win.
I haven't seen them. You'll have to show me. So, and of their support. And now, let's talk about the experience update that is also coming with this patch. Daybringer also remarked about this, but what's happening is that experience globes will no longer completely disappear after 6 seconds, but they are going to shrink. Kyle, what does shrinkage do to experience globes?
Well, apparently, after shrinking, they will remain on the battlefield for an additional 39 seconds and become worth 25% of their original XP value.
That's an extremely specific amount of time. I wonder how they landed on 39 seconds.
I'm not entirely sure myself, and this is also every single map at the same time, so it's not like they looked at Sky Temple's rotation time versus Infernal Shrines and said, oh, damn, we had 45 seconds, which looked real pretty, but let's go with 39 instead.
Yeah. So 45 seconds total, but only full XP for the first 6 seconds. This has been of all the controversies, this is the one I'm just so confused why anyone has a problem with.
I agree, but let's work through it a little bit. So the main concern is that it is a teaching tool, that all the XP changes have been about informing players that XP exists and it's something you must gather. Ultimately, the I want to know something that my enemy doesn't, folks, and the oh my God, you need to teach people, folks, can't decide on a similar system. And some people who say, oh, if everyone knew how to play this game, I could actually win, and are the same people saying, oh, wait, no, I want to be able to Samuro Hearth trick because no one else knows I can do it. And that's fair. Like, having knowledge that your enemies don't is a very valuable thing. You shoot arrows at your ancient army, and now they know how arrows work. You only got one go at it. So for tournament players, for competitive players, the entire XP globe system has been a bad thing because it allows you to double soak more freely. Different heroes can double soak because you have that delay time. You're not missing soak by double soak. So this whole double soak apocalypse, if you want to call it that, is due to XP globes existing. Now, people are concerned that they will just continue to badly double soak and no one's actually going to get good at the activity. But going down to 25% of XP is a huge hit.
That's where my brain is at. I'm just like, you're missing out on 75% of the total XP that you could get. I don't know. I just don't see a world where this truly makes players, for lack of a better word, lazier. I don't know about you, Kyle, but I've had multiple jobs where I had to punch in a time clock. I did not lose 75% of my hourly rate when I clocked in 1 second late.
Now, we had two people in the chat at the same time say, it rewards not knowing the game. It punishes less, not rewards. And that's really interesting that both people said at the same time. I'm wondering where that quote came from, perhaps, or if it was just an organic moment there.
Well, I think these two individuals are disagreeing with one another, by the way.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. What was the Strato Bucket saying it rewards not knowing the game, and Kajitar saying it punishes less, not rewards. Saying that this is not a reward, it's just not punishing as much.
I see.
Punishment would be they disappear, you get no XP. Less of a punishment is, well, you didn't get there in time, you get a consolation prize of 25% XP. So I'm with Kajitar in this Twitch banter.
I think that's an interesting way to think about it. It's ultimately about whether the visual works or not. If you see the shrinkage and you go, "Oh, that looked bad. What happened there?"
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
no.
5.
I want let's just write. I want these to be girthy amounts of XP. We need to get them nice and early. And that reward is good. Right now there is a problem with played games, with watching a game from the observer, because there are many times where I see an XP globe on the field in CCL and I go, "Ooh, XP." And then it just sits there and does nothing. And I'm like, "Oh, it must have been the enemy's XP orbs because I can see all orbs." That was kind of weird. I wasn't totally sure what the game was communicating there.
Yeah, it is a little strange, right, when you see both sides of it, because we didn't get XP orbs until after HGC was over, and if you weren't watching community tournaments, yeah, CCL is going to be your first time seeing it on both sides.
But I do think it's interesting that people, I do like that thought that people are looking for rewards. It is a punishment for being late, but you're now gaining something back at least. You know, I probably miss on double soak rotation 1 minion per wave. Let's just theorize, smooth that out. Probably something like that. That kind of sucks. And now I will get 25% of that. I might be better at double soaking in this way. But should I be rewarded for being a bad double soaker? Should I have memorized every hogger rotate location so I can get between lanes that much faster? Yes.
I'm just now realizing that I wish this was something I had paid attention to when I was testing, but I didn't. Did they change it all, like the little pop-up over your head when you pick up one of these shrunken XP orbs?
We don't know. It's not in this BTR patch.
Oh, it's not? Okay. All right. I assumed it was.
This is coming with the patch, but they couldn't fit it into the PTR.
Okay. Gotcha. Because that to me could be a big one, because I do want it to be abundantly clear that you're missing out on XP. Because they're already pretty small visually, right? I'm not sure how much smaller you could make it and it be really, really obvious what's happening, right? Because that's where my brain goes. It's like a almost not. I mean, it's not quite interface because it's actually like an in-game graphic, right? But it's still sort of interface. It's like, how well are we selling this visually to the player that you done goofed? Yeah, there's still an orb, but it's a pathetic orb. It's a sad orb that just got out of the pool and is really sad that you walked in on it prematurely.
Well, and you are a new player. You're looking at bottom lane Sky Temple. I always see this happen down there. Just lanes crashing. The orbs are sitting there. They go blink, 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 and disappear. And your mind might go, oh, what was that? Weird. A fracture of light. Who knows?
Yeah.
But if it's sitting around looking sad, you might be encouraged to go run over those things like you're playing a mobile game. And then the blink, blink, blink goes flying into you. And
Kyle, you can't say mobile game. We're trying to sell people on this right now.
But it is a feature, like running my finger all over the screen during a Plants vs. Zombies kind of thing. Like, it is definitely a design based on that sort of feedback. Because what we're fighting here ultimately is cash. In Dota, when I last hit, cling, 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 cash appears my head. Cash is now in my account. And we know what getting money feels like. It feels good. And we immediately associate that with good things. The XP system and what Heroes has tried to do by avoiding last hit has caused all these issues that we're continuing to try to teach people out of.
I like your first comment, which is just like, well, at the moment, if you go and you're late, there's just nothing there. What is there to learn? And there's just as much of an argument that arriving and seeing a small diminished XP orb, there's more to teach you there than arriving and finding nothing. The game should put its own spray that goes, you done goofed. That's what it should
do. And you arrive late to that lane after it has already crashed and it's all dead and gone, and these little tiny baby XPs fly into you, and it's real sad, and it's like 25 each or whatever. And then you stick around in that lane and the numbers get bigger and cooler, and the XP has happy faces on it. Who knows? I can see that working. And I don't think we are punishing good players or rewarding bad players, but that's a fascinating aspect to pursue further.
Yeah, I think so as well. This is just some really, I don't know. To me, I find this all fascinating. There's just such really interesting game design things happening with this patch. And I'm certain some of it is not going to stick the landing, right? Like, I'm not here just like trying to sell everyone on all of this stuff whole hog, but I'm really fascinated by all of it and anxious to see where it goes from here, right? Like, how much of this sticks, how much of it gets adjusted, how much of it just gets removed entirely. Some of the stuff, it's really reminding me of anomalies. Like, lone talents are reminding me of anomalies. The way that we're addressing or modifying XP orbs in the future reminds me of anomalies. And I really liked them, whether they've stuck around or they didn't. I was glad to see them.
And I think to the devs, kind of my caution here would be that we trust you guys to make things better. We've seen the medallion come and go. We've seen weather come and go very quickly. Granted, that had a lot of bad features on computers. Certain computers, certain graphics cards really struggled with weather, so it went fast, way faster than it otherwise would have. We trust our devs that they can make this change good if it's bad on delivery. Right now, our trust issues are all about how big is that turnaround time if it is bad.
Yes. Yeah, my skepticism there still exists. The time between patches has not done a whole lot of positive positive things for me in in that regard, in regards to those sorts of opinions. But Daybringer does seem to be going out of his way to quell those concerns, saying, "Hey, we're going to monitor this." But yeah, that's my thought as well. Is that's cool. We're going to monitor it and see a change like 2 months later. If it is really bad, I don't personally think this is going to be a major catastrophe, but I have certainly been wrong before, Kyle.
Well, and I do think they're right to focus on the positive end here of reinforcement when you go, oh, I made this much money, but I could have made this much money. That's way more positive than a continual pop-up that says, you're missing XP, you're missing XP. Some people want that. You mentioned when you take coaching, you kind of want the brunt force approach. You don't want a doctor holding your hand here. You want them to tell you what's wrong with you.
My favorite teacher in art school was the one who literally threw one of my pieces in the trash and told me to start over.
It works for different people.
Yeah, I do not want subtlety. I don't want it. But yeah, nonetheless, I'm excited about this change. So let's now sit and try our best to have a conversation about the PTR patches as a whole and the balance changes that are coming, shall we? Starting with the fact that I didn't see this coming. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts. Warhead Junction is moving into the ranked play rotation and replacing Volskaya.
So Volskaya we expected to go out. There is fundamental issues with how the robot works, and in tournament play, you're just more powerful being a hero outside of it. So it's been used to soak aggro from buildings, to tank random sources of damage while the rest of the team parks it basically and leaves it there. There is no sort of sweet strategy where you park it and then the gunner stays in because the DPS isn't that high. But of course, in low leagues, you wouldn't want a giant robot that isn't dying quickly to be killing the whole enemy team. That's too much. So Volskaya has fundamental issues that are going to be worked out, and it might go the way of Haunted Mines in that way. Warhead Junction being elevated to serious mode, however, does have some folks concerned. Mostly the concerns I've heard so far are from quick match mains, who get this map a lot more than any of us Storm League players, and they have very particular strategies about how this game should be played. For instance, never ever nuke the mid lane because you're constantly rotating by it anyway, and it'll get pushed out naturally as you play the video game itself. You want to nuke the top and bottom lanes because that's where all the mercs go in the first place, and you're actually going to get core pressure. So my only concern really is that a lot of quick match aficionados are going to be very, very angry with ranked players because we simply don't know any Warhead Junction strategies.
To that I say, Kyle, playing Warhead Junction with a Butcher and Valera in every game, it doesn't make a draft strategy anyway, so I'm not sure how helpful your quick match knowledge really is.
That's true. I frankly don't like going there because it's a junkyard. I'm a hero. I want to be in beautiful settings. I want to see snow. I want to see dragons, not trash.
I gotta say, I actually really enjoy my games on Warhead post the addition of the tunnels. Whenever I get into them on quick match, like I everything I'm pulling from my memory bank right now is positive. Like, I'm like, yeah, that was fun. That was fun. When I play with you, it's really fun because we try and gank people using the tunnels, and that's a blast. I didn't see it coming, but that doesn't mean I think it's a wrong play. I think in just kind of a court of Heroes of the Storm public opinion that I'm not in this camp, but I feel like the community would have liked to have traded this out for Braxis as well. I feel like the community is like, no, only one StarCraft map at a time, because a lot of Heroes players don't like those StarCraft maps. And now we're going to have both in draft rotation. I don't mind this. I love me a good Braxis. Everyone knows that. Except that last one we played when I got pitted against that Chen. If anyone knows any way I can suck less against Chen on Rexhour, if it's just a fool's errand, if the Chen knows what they're doing, please let me know. But yeah, I'm kind of all for this, really. If anything, I think my thought is I'm going to miss the pad fights in Volskaya because I really learned to love them.
they were enjoyable. There were games, of course, where you had all the items and you completely zoned them out. But what game hasn't had you hiding behind the walls while the nukes drop? These are all going to be issues on any map and any MOBA. So I'm all, in general, I'm all for ranked rotation map changes. I just think they bring about new metas. They highlight global heroes. Heroes that take advantage of double soak through tunnels are going to be up. You know, Zool might have a big heyday just because he's now got another map that he's really good at. All that stuff is super exciting to me and changes up the gameplay. I'm also really excited about something really, really minor that's coming, perhaps. Again, like I say minor, but inserting keywords into the search bar might actually be really, really hard to do. That's what they're doing. They're updating these search terms so that you can find things like camp, sustain, double soak, escape, burst, mage, CC when you're searching for a hero rather than just Diablo, which brings up Valla, but also Diablo because they're all Diablo characters.
It didn't previously work like that?
It didn't give you the ability to search for terms that we use at home, like double soak, for instance. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, if you now, you know, it's limited by blizzards. I don't mean this in like the way people love to hate, you know. It's limited by what Blizzard sees a double soaker being. So when I type in double soak, I get Nazebo, Zool, Lost Vikings, and Abathur. That's not the entire pool, and that's not how we treat Malthael, Leoric, even just a really uppity Sonya. we run double soak Dahakas and Divas. Like, there's all sorts of other heroes, but on a basic level, those double soak identifications do work. You know, you're a bronze player. Someone says, hey, we need a double soak. You go, oh, crud. I'm going to type in double soak. Nazebo, Zool are definitely in that easier to do wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought though, because like we should really have the rest of the heroes that could get the job done in that list, because I think it's marginally helpful that this has been added. But I also think this is a pretty minor thing that I don't think a lot of players. I would be surprised if a lot of players even took advantage of this tagging feature.
I think it'll be most useful when I'm in that situation where someone says we have no CC, and just typing CC into the search bar is going to give me a list of heroes that have that option. Granted, you know, it's not perfect here. Like, I type in CC and I don't see Kael'thas, for instance. But maybe that's an actual thought process they went through. They were thinking to themselves, a CC hero is actually somebody who's going to stun and live to tell the tale about it. But I type in stun, and let's see here. I get Ragnaros. I get all sort of heroic abilities, talent options. Oh, I'm looking. Let me see. Can I find Kael'thas in here? Yes, he is. He is in there.
So this is for stun, but not for CC.
Right.
Interesting.
Or I type in root and I get Zarya on the list, and I don't know what that might be. I think she has a talent that can remove roots. She can like cleanse her allies. So maybe that's what that's about. There are some errors in this. It's not perfectly clean, but it's a nice step.
Yeah. I like this quite a bit. I would really like to see it expanded upon and really fine-tuned, but I can also see how it's probably not the biggest priority in the game. So,
I can't combine them either, so I can't do like mage CC. Or can I do burst CC? No, that doesn't work either. So it would be a very interesting tool going forward. These aren't visual either, which I think would be a lot of fun. Like, you know, you hover over Tychus, you see ranged assassin, difficulty medium. I would love if these tags were then below them, but I understand too, if they ever balance Leoric and they change the way his cleave works. Now he doesn't double soak. Malthael is a double soak based on something, you know, a level 1 talent, perhaps like on a pale horse. Do we really want to make people accidentally head that way?
Yeah, you're inferring a lot too, though, right? Like, how much is someone going to read into a tag and go, I also know what build I'm going with this hero I'm picking to fulfill a role I don't usually play? Like, that's a pretty, to me, I see that it seems like a pretty large leap.
I do like the sustain one, though. That does have some pretty good thoughts about it. It does contain both healers and DPS. Doesn't have Gul'dan though. Oh no, there he is. Okay, cool. So they are making some different differentiations between mage and sustain, which is really kind of advanced. That's something that it's very easy for people to get to. We've drafted double mage. Well, yes, we've drafted double spell damage, but these are two very different kinds of damage throughputs.
Yeah, it's not always an auto loss, but all right. Well, let's talk about who got reworked. We've made mention, but what at a base level, what happened with all of these? And let's start with Anduin, which I think you and I are both in the camp of looking at this as a slight buff, but also a buff that we're just completely unsure about.
Yeah, the scary thing about this Anduin rework is that he's gotten a lot of power in auto attacks. He has ways of reducing cooldowns with auto attacks, increasing his healing output with auto attacks. For instance, if you have renews going, if you're continuing to auto attack, those renews will refresh. And that's a very cool idea. But when Anduins play in more serious environments and higher leagues, they're actually stupid safe. Because you have to imagine your leap of faith could save somebody at any point. So why would Anduin be aggressive? That would then put that person you're saving in a bad position. But Anduin also seems to have a little more DPS, if you want to call it that, a little more throughput, a little more aggression that he's capable of. And Anduin could very well fulfill a double support role coming up.
Double support.
More options are good for double support. However, lots of people say they don't even want it touching their game. I think double support is very viable because it cuts down your lane clear so much. There are other things you have to account for.
I think there's going to be an argument for it with this Vala rework, potentially.
One of the really cool things about the Anduin update is he did get a new level 20 for his light bomb, which is the target of light bomb gains 40% movement speed and 50 armor for 3 seconds. So you can get that thing booking. You can put it on yourself if you're in the low leagues and you don't trust anybody else, and get that bomb off very reliably. There's also a new Chastise talent level 20 that allows you to stun in addition to the root.
Yeah, in addition to the fact that we're getting multiple reworks, there's a lot of pretty interesting 20s happening. Which reminds me of AZ Jackson, because I obviously I think anomalies are gonna stick out of my mind more as kind of what the AZ Jackson years, and I realize more people that are involved than Jackson, but we had a relationship with him on the show and whatnot. But the 20s come in a close second for me, as to if like you say AZ Jackson, that's what I think of, like really wild level 20 talents, and there's quite a few here.
Anduins will definitely note that auto attacks are coming up very frequently in these talents. And that might not be what they want, but your basic attack speed has been increased. There's really nice talents to increase your range. So it doesn't seem dangerous. And I don't feel like it steps on the heels of Whitemane or Tyrande, just because his kit and the way he works. And still, with Leap of Faith in the background, he has to position safely. At least when that's on cooldown or off cooldown. Yeah. And there's
is there just a mini focus on wanting to focus on damage a little bit more with healers? Because we also had Lily's dragon talents getting a lot of love with the last patch. Or am I just connecting dots that don't need to be connected?
It's an interesting thought. It's always, just like we talked about with XP there, it's always scary to kind of go down that player education role. I know in my own coachings, and particularly in bronze and silver, supports are a source of damage. And taking a few hits on Lily to activate your trait is a great thing, because now that's not hits on Valla, who would die from those additional hits. So it might be kind of a learning thing, like deep or supports, healers, get in there a little bit, please. You're part of this overall power pie. But we also saw this weekend in the CCL an Uther that basically healed from beyond a wall. Like, was always at max range on everything and avoiding being in positions of CC because the enemy team was so bursty to a front line. So Uther solo support getting in there would have been horrible.
What a great adaptation, though. Like, that's the kind of thing where I'm like, can we learn this? Can we bring this into our home games, right? Like, can we truly adapt our play, not just our builds, if we're even doing that, depending on what the opposing team drafted? Like, know when you are at a disadvantage and respect it. That's a little side tangent. Has nothing to do with this patch, but that what you just said to me, I'm like, oh, chef's kiss. That's what a work of art. That's beautiful.
And if Anduins are playing too passively, which I really do think they are in a lot of the low league situations, this could encourage them to participate in a more aggressive way, which makes a more interesting Anduin. And ultimately, a high league Anduin can say, I'm on cooldown for Leap of Faith. I will now be aggressive. And that's just increasing the skill ceiling because now we have more you can do on the hero.
I like that. And again, bringing it back to that Uther you're talking about, it's like it just gives you a little bit more there. It gives the option. It gives you that freedom to potentially be more aggressive. It doesn't mean you need to be in every game and in every scenario. So I think that's fine. So and like they're not messing with heroics, right? So if you're used to certain heroics, anyone's still going to play the same way. They haven't, while Leap of Faith got a new passive functionality, and they're not like messing with the cooldown of its activated ability or the way that activated ability functions. I think at the core, Anduin is going to be playing the same way that we know him. Like the main playmaking potential of Anduin is alive and well and untouched.
Right. But if you do not embrace these new tools that you have, you may find yourself with a nerfed Anduin.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to think about it. Johanna.
Big rework here.
I'm very confused about this Johanna rework.
You should be.
Cool.
A lot of people are, and some are a little angry about it. Basically, Johanna, if we were to make a extremely broad statement, is losing her identity as the premier lane clear tank. But she might be a better off-laner / support, and I'm talking about support like in the lines of like Tyrael. So your main tank, Johanna, is often a reaction to maybe double support, just a lack of lane clear, or you're going to do some sort of rotation where, hey, 4-man, like you guys be real safe. Johanna will cover this for a time, but then I will come online and take over the tank role at 10. Now, a lot of this was tied to her entire lane clear persona was tied to sins exposed. You would blind the lane, mark them for bonus damage, and then you go in with the condemn, which deals bonus damage on top of the bonus damage, and bam, the lane disappears in one big move. Johanna was able to double soak using this strategy for the past years because it also meant that she was extremely quick, which means the tank wasn't visible for an extended period of time. One thing about Malthael and Rework that you have to consider is that you have to absolutely position right in the middle of that lane so you cleave the whole lane and there's no blip on the map. Like Jaina. Jaina runs up, blizzards a lane, bam, 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 bam. And then she's gone off the minimap again and go, oh, Jaina could be anywhere. But a slow double soaker, a slow lane clear is just visible for a very long time. So with Sins Exposed gone, they have replaced it with a new functionality in Eternal Retaliation. Hitting enemies with Condemn marks them for 10 seconds. Johanna's next basic attack removes the mark, lowers the cooldown of Condemn, refunds 10 mana, and instantly kills minions. So when you mark them, they're going to die to an auto attack. But
you're Johanna.
With I believe it's a 0.9 second auto attack. So not the worst auto attack in the world, but certainly not speedy. And Johanna going into lane, condemning, and then going, one for you, one for you, one for you, is just going to dramatically slow down her lane clear. And that's where we have to talk about Johanna. Like, Johanna has had that role for so very long, and because she did it so fast, she could still main tank. Now that it's slower, still capable, could still double soak, she could still get that done, but the problem is now that she can't clear it so fast, she could also go do those other tank main jobs.
Which tank now has better lane clear, is my question.
This is all about seconds. So this is not done without math. The fact that they took it to her auto attack, and we saw this in the Hogger update we're going to talk about a little bit today.
Mm-hmm.
It does mean that she might be on par with things like Blaze, perhaps, or many, many, many other lane characters that you might be aware of. I don't think this takes you down to possibly Thrall levels, but you're certainly not going as fast as Blast Wave Ragnaros anymore.
I find this really, like, potentially really interesting. It's just that it's not in the direction that I typically like to see change be brought about. I'd rather see change come because we made other heroes around the gold standard better, and not so much that we made the gold standard worse. Yes. But sometimes it's called for, I guess, is my caveat there. Like, sometimes what else can you do?
It's a very complicated balance update in that way. So let's take that in pieces. Let's put them all in little boxes separately, and then we can try to mix them all together and see what we've got. It'll be like we're doing a cooking show, even though no one lays out their ingredients like that in advance.
But my wife does.
She actually pre-measures everything in little cups and then does the cups one at a time?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. I haven't been cooking as much since she tried this. Anyway, sorry. That's how I build Lego sets, by the way. And it's highly recommend it.
Okay, you're an adult now. I understand that. Like, sometimes you really savor...
You tapped into a nerdy personal thought of mine. Anyways, back to Johanna. Johanna, by the way, would definitely separate her ingredients out before she started cooking.
Probably. Make a real big show about the justice of it all.
Yes.
So Johanna loses her identity as this lane clear tank, but she gains some auto attack talents, which right on the back of Anduin, you kind of go, "Oh no, is this your new fat?" No, not really. It's just kind of a thing across Johanna and Anduin right now. Your immediate reaction to Johanna-based auto attack talents, like the one that comes on her lone talent there, where she gains armor for every basic attack she delivers, 8 physical armor, stacking up to 40. Your first thought is, well, why would Johanna stand there auto attacking me? She's got way more important things to do, like positioning correctly, chasing down people with condemn, lining up her shield. Just a host of things that you would never, ever see Johanna being like, "Come here, let me stand just in your face for an extended period of time, auto-attacking you." You're not going to let it happen. You don't want a tank standing that close to you. But there's new movement speed options. And at level 7, we have a really cool talent like Steed Charge. This is straight from Diablo. Which
is also straight from WoW. My Paladin has this ability, and I believe it predates the Diablo. I believe it predates Reaper of Souls.
And it's great. Like, I wasn't a big fan of the Crusader, but this made me love my Crusader, and I took it all the way through the game to max level.
Such a fun talent in both games that we've now referenced, by the way.
Activate to instantly become mounted for 3 seconds, and damage dealt to Johanna during this time doesn't dismount her. So she has new auto attack talents, which we originally were thinking going through these balance patches that you're never going to get to land because you have no way to actually engage on the enemy. But your level 7 also has an option to increase your passive movement speed, kind of like an Arthas. When condemning, this movement speed is increased. So passively going 10% faster than other heroes means you're going to connect more auto attacks. And getting even faster bonus movement speed on top of that when you condemn is going to mean more auto attacks, more being in people's faces.
It's also going to mean more condemns that reach that target that would have otherwise gotten away.
Exactly. So we now have a Johanna at level 7 that can actually connect with the enemy without having to wait all the way to 10. So her going off to do those lane-soaked jobs might not be as part of her kit as it once was. And then we come to Falling Sword. The damage was decreased. The enemies hit are not slowed. The cast range was decreased. And you're going, why are you doing this to Falling Sword? Additional functionality while in the air. Allies underneath Johanna gain Unstoppable.
How cool is that?
So you are a ranged power cleanse in the area effect of Falling Sword.
Johanna just got so thematic, which is exciting, but it also plays into my extreme confusion on just where Johanna is going to land meta-wise post this rework. I'm really excited to play Johanna.
Yeah.
But I don't know how effective I'm going to be.
And that's where we kind of all are right now. It's worth mentioning that fanaticism is gone, which was a bit of a problem talent in that it was just really, really great and kind of forced a very required build from level 1. Also, imposing presence is gone, which you may have really liked because Condemn did pull people into the range of it, and you might, in very particular situations, be able to use it in a really good way.
I'm personally just really stupidly excited about the new functionality on Zealous Glare, which has been moved to 1, which is get a second charge of Shield Glare.
That's all really cool stuff. So Johanna is still that blind tank. It's still bringing that anti-physical damage armor and presence. She still has her iron skin, but I just want to highlight that these movement speed options mean you don't have to engage with iron skin on anymore. And we now have ways for you to go deep on Johanna, right? Like fully, like the number of games I played on Johanna where I am one front line and my back line is Squishy McSquisherson healer, Hanzo, Li Ming, and then some other squishy. Like these games happen when you early pick Johanna, and it is a labor to have to stand in front of them and constantly interact with only the enemy front line. Now I can go on a horse charging into the back line, disrupting the cool kids that I actually want to disrupt, and then fly all the way back to my team to interrupt not only just basic stuns, but things like extended stuns, like Gravel Bomb and Mosh Pit and Maiev, Warden's Cage. Like, that's really, really cool and will make Johanna way more dynamic. The big trade-off, of course, is that she will not be clearing those lanes with the same frequency and same power.
Yeah, and it's to get I don't know, philosophical for a moment. That bums me out a little bit. It bums me out that our like understanding of efficient play is making me less jubilant for what is otherwise a really exciting thematic shift for one of my favorite heroes.
And I do think that's a bit of Stockholm syndrome, just because we've all had to play a lot of Johanna in the past. We learned to love her by necessity.
That is fair. Well, if you remember, I was on board the Johanna train like day 1 when she was added. For you youngins, which I guess are 30-year-olds playing Heroes of the Storm. Yes, Johanna was not a launch hero.
Well, and for me, I just wanted my monsters, and she's just a dirty old human, but I've come to love her.
Oh, she's got the best floppy mohawk ever.
It's really interesting. I'm really excited to play this Johanna, and I would love to hear some dev philosophy about double support, because I think this is where removing Johanna from that lane clear job is going to hit the hardest. She is so often brought in to fix a team. And if Anduin has double support viability, if we're still doing Uthers and stuff like that, we might be forced into a more Holy Trinity kind of meta, just because we don't have other ways to fix it.
It's a thought, right? I'm not... I think my final thought on Johanna is that as long as we do not find a replacement that is almost as damn good at lane clear as Johanna previously was, I think I'm really down for a meta where most of the tank options are okay at wave clear and not one of the best in the game. I'd like, if I take my personal time spent in the again, we can get into the psychological aspects of it, like the sunk cost fallacy, all that type of stuff. If I remove that, all the time I've spent learning how to wave clear correctly on Johanna, I do think that's an interesting meta to find ourselves in, and potentially opens the door to tanks that we otherwise have not been giving the time of day.
We love to trash on Blaze, for instance, but he might be someone who can do that lane clear job while still fulfilling a tank role. By the way,
exactly what I was thinking of.
It's worth mentioning here. We're going to talk about the Stitches rework in a moment, but he also lost his bonus damage to minions, mercenaries, and monsters on his slam. So there seems to be a bit of a theme here.
A little bit, yeah. I think this is yeah, I don't know. I firmly believe that this is a direction they're sending the game, for sure. I don't think there's anything subtle about it, in my opinion, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just new, and new things can be scary.
Well, and if this together with the XP change goes the best, I mean, there are many heroes that are really, really sad to be laning with, and Mal'Ganis always comes straight to my mind because the early game I'm not as useful, I'm not as survivable, so I often go grab that lane in quick match that is being covered, and it's just so awful.
If you had, is Mal'Ganis the answer on your Into the Nexus bingo card, go and mark it off.
However, if this combined, so no tanks have good lane clear, and this combined with the XP change makes people go cover that lane because they have Blizzard on their Jaina, big win. You know, maybe that's a confusion. The fact that Johanna was clearing a lane meant when you got on another tank, you went and did the same thing.
No one else could do it as well. There wasn't a swap out. If the Johanna was taken or what have you, like, what are you doing? Who are you grabbing instead? And that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, and it goes all the way back to earlier when I said, listen, this is not usually the way I prefer in a perfect world to see other heroes kind of come up in the roster and become more draftable. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think it's interesting. So
there are some big Garrosh lane clear fans out there, and I do think that is a avenue to consider. One of the great things
that would be an avenue of concern for me, because more Garroshes is a tightrope walk.
But I would like to add that Johanna's cooldowns that aren't heroic aren't necessarily the biggest deals in the world to be on cooldown from, right? Like, yes, you used your blind. Yes, you used your condemn and maybe a punish to even speed along, but that's nothing compared to Garrosh's kit on cooldown. So Garrosh lane clearing faster than Johanna now possibly also means Garrosh doesn't have those abilities should a fight break out, and that's way more expensive for him.
Interesting thoughts. Let's talk about Raynor. We mentioned him. Raynor is also in this lineup of reworks. The thing that like hit me right off the bat is the fact that they're reducing his basic attack damage baseline, which just was like, oh, whew, what's going on here? And by virtue of the order in which we list things in any sort of balance update, we always start with changes to the base kit. It was not the best foot to start off on for me. I read that and I was like, oh, come on, what are we doing? What are we doing with Raynor here? What are we doing? And I think they carry through here. So of everything on here on top of, besides Stitches, which, you know, I just am never happy to see Stitches on my team, and I'm just going to have to be proven wrong. I think Raynor is my biggest ball of concern. I don't like this personally.
That's fair. From testing, this basically feels like less overall DPS, but more fun options.
I say fiddly.
Fiddly? How so?
You better hit your Q, Kyle. And I don't find Raynor's Q to be a particularly fun ability.
That's an interesting way to take it.
There's so many Q talents. There's like a full Q build, it seems like now.
That is true. However, it's not terribly rocking. You might be actually caught on a typo here, because Heavy Slugs at level 7 says it increases the slow amount by 75%. It's actually a 15%. That's completely a typo.
So it's worse?
So yeah, it's actually like not anywhere close to 75%. It's a 15% increase.
I guess I was looking at Unstable Compound more at 7 anyway, but that's good to know. That's good to know.
There is, because of that typo, there's a perception that we're going to have like root Raynor, which is kind of a cool idea. What we're actually getting is a Raynor who might be laner, like might actually be
laner
the
Raynor?
premier Yeah. You know how we were talking about, I think it was last week, how, you're playing Ragnaros or anyone under the sun and you don't want to fight Lunara? Raynor might be the best answer to your best melee bruisers right now. Like, you can zone out Hogger on a gray main, but you're in a little bit of trouble because you can't manage your own health and you don't have any way to reposition should they fly into a very advantageous position. And Raynor now has those options, always has with his heal and his pushback, but they're that much more encouraged. And the laning premier talent for you is going to be Exterminator, which has new functionality, increased basic attack damage against minions, mercenaries, and monsters by 50%. This is increased by 125% while Inspire is active. The passive is that Inspire never expires with minions and mercenaries that are friendly.
How does this, is it an aura effect?
No.
If you break range, do they then lose it? Or if they got it, they just have it until they die?
Right. So you take a camp on Raynor, and as you leave, you inspire them, and they're forever inspired as they push down the lane.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. By the way, Ace in the Hole had to die, so Exterminator could be interesting.
Ace in the Hole is still there.
It's a penetrating round talent now, Kyle.
Enemy heroes hit by Gims and Pepper are slowed by 10% for 2.5 seconds. Penetrating round deals 25% more damage to stun or slowed enemies. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, this is what like really started me down the fiddly Q build Raynor. It does not entice me. And so yeah, I think I'm more enticed by the non-penetrating round talents, which leads me down this Exterminator route, which leads me down a route where I'm just not dealing as much damage as I used to.
That is true.
Feels like a net loss on Raynor.
Right. So my understanding is to be a level 20 DPSer with good sustain, something that is draftable as a just damage roll, you want to do about 700 to 900 DPS. And Greymane does about 1,000 on a fixed target, like a core, something like that, at 20. Raynor is now like in that like 500, 600 area. So he's not the DPS you're going to pick for just pure throughput. But he is the DPS that you're going to pick on something like Battlefield of Eternity because it has these cute features and you can empower a camp when you take it. And you have the survivability to lower the cooldown on your adrenaline rush, have armor during your adrenaline rush, heal yourself, take care of yourself in that lane that you're fighting versus Hogger or Ragnaros. And that could really very well be a place for him.
He's he's a ranged bruiser now, which when I put it that way is really interesting.
I want to push your brain even further and say he's now a specialist. They basically made a specialist.
So I guess my crank is coming from the fact that I've got enough specialists already, Kyle. I didn't need to take one of my favorite comfort picks for range sustained damage and morph it into a role that I already have 8 other options for drafting for.
But you don't have an option like this, Garrett, that can deal 10,000 core damage in under 10 seconds. Let me tell you about Executive Order, a level 20 passive. Reduce your death timer to 30 seconds. So, hey, look at that. You can die. You'll be up by the time they even invade and get back to you. Upon death, cast a Hyperion towards the nearest enemy hero. This enemy hero does not need to be in sight, by the way. It just kind of knows.
That one's cool.
So double Hyperion on a core deals about 10,000 damage or a third of a core's health. So you can, I've Juice Pirates, of course. You could fly in with a medevac and you could get the T-Reel and then, but Raynor's throughput on a core can be rather dramatic. And he's giving up the big downside, which is he's going to die because he'll be back by the time people mobilize and get over there.
But you're doing less damage overall, and are you going to have access to the core in the first place because you're not a high-end damage dealer?
This is my perception as of right now. If you want to be DPS really good Raynor, the option's there for you, and it's called Dustwing. and your Banshee. Banshee's attacks at 20 lower the hero's armor, stacking up to 25. That talent alone is how you jump back in that DPS up to normal again, and the primary DPS role. And if you don't go Dustwing, you are not a DPS carry Raynor. But with Hyperion, dealing siege damage and basically being a specialist talent in the first place, they've made a Raynor that fulfills that kind of Nazebo-y sort of role. That old Sylvanas kind of feel.
It is, I mean, don't get me wrong. What is it called again? Executive Order? That is probably the single coolest talent in this entire patch, according to my opinion. Like, I'm very excited by it. But overall, I am just not sure Raynor is the hero for me anymore.
I think that outside of Battlefield Eternity, he wasn't a hero for a lot of people.
That's fair.
And his heal wasn't so amazing that you could give up other aspects to get that hero in. Like, you run solo support Uther and you go, oh crud, I really wanted to be Greymane, but now let's make it a Raynor. Like, that did not equal what you were looking for.
Mm.
And I think Siege Raynor does just give an option that is going to feel good for a lot of players.
That's fair. Well, we'll see. I'm hoping I'm wrong on this one. I'm unsure about everything as usual, but this time around specifically there's a lot of upheaval, and I'm not sure. But Raynor's near and dear to my heart, and I really funny enough, I think it comes back to Ace in the Hole more than anything else. It was like, oh, I liked Ace in the Hole. It was just a relaxing talent to take with the slow comp, and now it's tied to penetrating round. Yeah. It's not for me. Anyways, let's talk about speaking of not for me, let's talk about Stitches.
So it's still Stitches. Don't confuse yourself. If you don't like Stitches, you're still Stitches.
Yeah, we're not getting like a major like health increase or anything of that nature. We already talked about the fact that Fishing Hook has been baked in, and you're just gonna get it when you hit 13. You hit 13 on Stitches. Guess what? Your hook has 40% additional range. That's
the big story here for Stitches is, of course, losing that minions, mercenary monsters, bonus slam damage. It never, ever reached Johanna levels, so he never came out as another option should Johanna be removed or you have to make up for lane clear.
But this came up in chat earlier, and it got me thinking, though, like, post this Johanna change, though, who knows what landscape could have been had they not adjusted this. This, to me, seemed preemptive. Like, they were like, well, if we're knocking down Johanna's lane clear, what's the next most enticing thing out there? And I think that the devs think it was Slam.
But there's a new button for you. Shambling Horror. Your trait can be activated to spread vile gas to nearby enemies every second and prevent Stitch's movement speed from being reduced below 110% for 5 seconds. Now, that's 110% because there's lots of movement speed talents here available for Stitches, and they want to make sure you're maintaining some of it should you be hit by slows.
Yeah, so at worst, you're getting a 10% bonus if you talent it into movement speed increasing abilities. This is cool. This is quite cool. Shambling Horror gets my intrigue stamp.
And there's a lot of talents that interact with it. A lot of them are about how many targets are currently under the effects of vile gas. So something like Infernal Shrines, where there's lots of enemies to affect with gas. He could find himself, for instance, with a talent that is giving him 40 armor. Now, that's not going to stick around because it's based on how many people he has vile gas on.
Right, it'll be constantly oscillating depending on how many people are currently in range, right?
Right, exactly. But you have a movement speed Stitches who has a lot of armor, and that just means you have a Stitches that can gorge or can putrid bile. His heroics are great. And if he can actually get into a position where he can take advantage of those, either grab the person he wants or spread the bile where he wants, that means you have an effective Stitches. So by giving him this new activatable, they've created this environment where run at you Stitches can exist.
When you say run at you Stitches, it's just a terrifying visual in my mind. But yeah, it's quite interesting. And again, I think any other time I would have written a lot of this off, but knowing how we've shifted the tank landscape with Johanna, this could be. I'm giving this Stitches rework more of the time of day, but I'm also not a Stitches player.
Well, and it's still Stitches, right? Like all those beautiful, beautiful bonuses I just mentioned about being in combat and pursuing who you want. Or Stitches could stand all the way in the back, pop his movement speed in order to run behind a gate because he was going to do that anyway. Doesn't take advantage of the armor, all these other things he has, passive healing received, what have you, and just keeps playing the way he was. So there is a new kind of Stitches you can play, the run at them, get your target. And I think that's a great fantasy. I think that's a great bit of like horror for this abomination and theming. But it might not even go out that way because people are just going to Stitches their Stitches.
Yeah, but we're getting second helping at 7 move from 20, and so you're going to get the way it works now is you're getting like a second charge of Devour, which is interesting. This also has a lone talent baked into it. Like I don't know. I'm holding out hope, but I don't know. I think I'm about to advocate for a more heavy-handed, like just do something with Gorge, but we also got the a pretty heavy-handed Johanna nudge. So I'm not sure there was room for it for Stitches as well.
There's some really fun level 20s, like Master Hooker. Fabulous name. Thank you for that. Reduces the cooldown of Hook by 5 seconds. Enemy heroes hit by a hook receive 100% less healing for 2 seconds. Allied heroes hit by a hook are unkillable for 2 seconds.
Master Hooker was my wrestling name in high school.
Mine was Gas Bag, a new level 20. Activate Shambling Horror to grant you Unstoppable for 3 seconds. Passive reduce Shambling Horror's cooldown by 20 seconds. So there is a upfront Stitches with Bile that I think I will very much enjoy, and re-engaging somebody with a hook as they try to get away is my preferred style. And I think that this Stitches encourages both the fishing Stitches and the upfront Stitches, and since you get that range automatically at 13, you're not having to sacrifice anything depending on which way you go.
I'm hoping it leads to a tanky survivability build becoming popular because you no longer have to build a certain way. Stitches could be so good. It could just be so good, man. If we took everyone's knowledge of how to land a hook properly, Devour, get them behind the wall, and then just added proper tanking methods into that. That'd be so good. Having that as like a flourish to your tanking is great. Having it be the only damn thing you're trying to accomplish for an entire game of Heroes of the Storm, that is where I think you and I exit the Stitches train.
Well, that's the Donkey Kong problem.
You go in Smash Brothers where you pick them up and you walk over and you just jump off the damn stage?
And your friend got it in their head that that's what they wanted to do tonight, so they just chase you everywhere trying to do this one thing instead of actually playing the game. Like that, I do think that this Shambling Horror upgrade moves us towards that, and it might be really fun. I haven't actually played this in a real game yet, but it might be really fun managing gas on targets and seeing how much I can spread that gas around, since my damage is now reined in a bit from our old days of Stitches. Like, you're not slamming in order to slam and kill. You're doing it so you get all these other benefits on your trait.
I'm down with that. I hope this works. I hope this works. Like, I don't have it out for Stitches on like a base level. Like the hook hero is such a famous archetype in MOBAs, and I would like Stitches to be more regularly represented in HOTS, but we'll see if this does it. Write in, by the way, if you're like a hardcore Stitches player. I want to hear from you. What do you think of this? How's it landing for you? All right, I've been dancing around Vala the whole damn episode. Let's talk about Vala's rework.
So Vala is still a squishy paper Vala. That has not changed at all. You are now getting survivability talents across the board at 13. You have Siphoning Arrow healing, you have Tempered by Discipline healing, and you have Gloom providing passive background healing in addition to its spell armor. So Vala in Quick Match is probably going to be a little better where there's no supports at all. Her sustain is still looking really good. It's probably going to equal about the same area. It's more that she has the capability to unleash absolutely insane level 20s that might be able to carry her back into the meta.
Yeah, everyone seems hung up on Death Siphon, which has new functionality where hitting an enemy hero with strafe increases its duration by a fraction of a second. And then you have a passive, which is while strafing, you throw out piercing bolts and they deal damage and they heal for the damage dealt. 25% of the damage dealt. They only deal 34 damage, but again, you're strafing. There's a lot of these going out, potentially. I am personally way more interested in the new functionality of Storm of Vengeance, because while this augments and reduces the cooldown of Rain of Vengeance, the new passive is that every stack of hatred grants 2% attack speed, up to a maximum of 30% when you're at max hatred. And I did try this on the PTR. Dude, have you messed with this? Have you looked at the attack speed is ridiculous.
I did not. In fact, the first thing I dove for was the Farflight Quiver, which has new functionality. Grant 20% basic attack range at max hatred. Increase this by an additional 30%, which puts you out of range of buildings. You can siege without being hit.
There's a lot here. This is really, really spicy. Are we? Hold on now. I'm trying to think. This just now hit me. This is not a developed thought. What's going on with like slowing down the tank wave clear? Are we heading towards a meta where we're going to more reliably hit 20? Are games going to go longer? Because I don't think so.
Yeah,
but we're putting a really big emphasis on level 20 talents in this patch.
I think they're just fun. I think that's just a really cool way to augment a hero and add something that can end a game in all leagues. I think it's a great catch mechanic in that way.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And we haven't even mentioned, by the way, that
game's ending.
We didn't even mention, by the way, that Vala's getting very much like the same Raynor treatment out the gate with a basic attack damage decrease on the base kit, as well as multi-shot damage going down on the base kit. But I don't know, there's something about Vala's rework that just works for me. It seems to just be kind of reshaping the same Vala mold, as opposed to in Raynor, where it feels like we've got a new Raynor, it feels like. Whereas Vala is kind of like, I don't know, I'm looking at this and in my head, this is the same Vala we're used to playing. It's just the way we build her, and the final form of Vala that we have in the end game is more interesting than what we had before.
I think a lot of this is just about identifying what makes Vala unique now. And we've gone through multi-shot builds. We've seen more than enough quick match, Creed of the Hunter players. But outside of wanting to be a double crossbow wielder with a big scarf, there wasn't much that was making her unique in our current meta with our current heroes. And a lot of these talents are based around just the fact that if you can manage your hatred and keep it at max, you're going to have a lot of just bonuses and things that feel really good. And the fact that Strafe got an upgrade at level 20 for this, that Strafe is looking like it's worth picking, is fantastic, because Strafe just straight up pauses your hatred. And so it's a great reposition tool. And now Valas have a higher skill ceiling to enjoy, rather than what we were doing in the past, which is now gone. By the way, I'm strafing right now infinite on 4 target dummies, so that's pretty fun. But in the past, like, the primary skill for Vala has been, can you Q and then dash, use your vault and Q again? How good are you at that particular skill? And with something like Monster Hunter gone at level 1, that's a pretty big hit. Getting Vala focused on damaging enemy heroes at the start is a cool thing, but we've got to go all the way to level 7 now before we get to Monster Hunter. Like, how does that dynamic now change?
I mean, how important is the first Immortal?
It's a reason why people take Vala on that map, regardless of its actual effectiveness.
You could also take Creed of the Hunter, which has that new lone talent where out the gate you have 20% increased attack speed. So that'll make up for it somewhat. I don't know how the math shakes out, but you will be landing more basic attacks in a shorter amount of time than you were previously, providing you don't die before Immortal Phase. You have to die 4 times before Immortal Phase to lose the entire bonus of this lone talent.
I'm going to say this is a lot like Raynor in that way. There's the Banshee build for Raynor where you are going to do great DPS to single targets and carry that range DPS style. You also have the Specialist build. And now we're seeing a Valla who can do the Monster Hunter thing without managing their hatred, but you can go this other direction where if you can control your hatred, if you're good at that mechanic, you've got a whole build there for you that is just going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm a little more excited here, is just because the way I would prefer to always play Valla, which is auto attack Valla, just got a lot more exciting at the end of the day. Versus where Raynor, I think, got fiddly, which is a hero that if I'm on Raynor, it's because I needed to bring sustain and no other option I wanted to play was available, or I'm trying to relax. It just made the hero more fiddly, which I'm not stoked about.
I honestly think there's a very relaxing Raynor there for you. It's going to be that Specialist style, though.
I can already do that with it. All right, whatever. Time will tell. The jury's out on that one. All right. But overall,
you still hit your Qs, Garrett. You should still hit your Qs. Regardless of your build, I want you to hit your Qs.
That is fair. That is, same goes for Valla. Regardless of your build, hit your Qs.
Yes. Hit
your Qs. Do we think there's any chance multi-shot build comes back into the meta? It's getting a lot of adjustments.
I mean, this level 1 quest, hitting an enemy here with multi-shot grants 2 hatred and permanently increases damage by 4. Arsenal, there's some cool stuff in here, and absolutely, like, the multi-shot slow now being at 7 is very, very enticing. I think it's really cool that the multi-shot talents have been stacked on top of many of our Hungering Arrow talents, which is basically what I'm saying. If you want to do Spellcaster Valla, here it is. If you want to do auto attack, manage your hatred Valla, go that direction. I think you will find that the auto attack hatred has better single target DPS, and the other one is just more specialist-y.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if this is successful, we're going to have a Valla that can build 3 different ways depending on what the situation calls for, which could be really interesting and something I hope for a lot of heroes. But we'll see how that shakes out as well. Other than that, we'll get more into the finer details next week. But we should probably talk about the rest of the balance changes in terms of who got buffed and who got nerfed. We're not really seeing as many kind of talent incentivization changes. If anything, I would argue that's what these reworks were. At least there was some of that mixed into these reworks. But the rest of these are, to me, pretty cut and dry. And most of them are nerfs, it feels like, except for Tassadar and Junkrat.
Which is frightening because I really don't want a Junkrat meta, but, that's fine. I haven't seen him much recently. And Tassadar just has too much wind up on his primary shock ability. So they're reducing that wind up by a very small fraction, but it is going to help him in higher end play.
Yeah. And I mean, Junkrat, okay, baseline Frag Launcher got a decent damage uptick. And we got some love on some talents.
It's not insane. No,
yeah.
These are all very small.
I don't know how much this just ushers Junkrat into the meta, because I share your concerns too. I lived through the last Junkrat meta as well. It was really annoying, but I think you and I are more eyeing our sights on Tassadar for biased reasons. We both love this hero.
It's fun. He's my relaxing hero at the moment.
I think you know what? I think he might be mine now post Raynor.
Sure. There are some very important nerfs that we've all been waiting for, and we're going to get real crunchy with those next episode. But I do want to make sure, because we've all been a little scared about it for a bit, let's run them down as fast as possible here. Hogger is easier to play and no longer takes 9-second camps. Basically, what they did is they removed the bonus rage damage against non-heroic targets. So a big part of learning Hogger It's sad. It's sad for me. I put so much work into this hero, but I absolutely understand it.
It was defining. There was no one else that could do it that well. We had this conversation in Johanna earlier. It's just, what do you do when something's that good in a drafting game, right? Because you want to have a. We talk so much about counters, but there's also like I feel like I typically would love the option to match what the opposing side is doing well. And there just wasn't an equal to Hogger outside of quick match mirror matches.
It's true. And Hogger is now absolutely reined in those PvE environments. He also has less rage management requirements in order to clear because his overall hog wild damage went up. I'm saving that for now because you have to realize that rage is no longer augmenting that damage as much or against non-heroic targets. It was cut by half. So Hogger is now, in fact, just easier to play in some ways, but he won't be doing all the PvE stuff he was. And that is very important for the health of the game, despite all my wonderful practice.
Yeah. Slam build, Sonya. It's nerfed.
Yep, across the board, basically, we're looking at a Sonya slam build that got nerfed. Damage bonus reduced on Furious Blow. Giant Slammer at 16 had his healing reduced from 100% of the damage dealt to 60.
Off a
that's
cliff,
a pretty big deal.
Yeah. The weirdest one is Shattered Ground. We'll get into it more next week, but they've like split the bonuses on it depending on if you're attacking a hero or a monster. It behaves differently.
And they've completely changed how the damage bonus is being calculated. So when you look at the old talent that says 125% bonus damage, that was 125% of the base damage of the original slam being added to the side back slams. Now it's 250% bonus damage, but that's just that little tiny 51 that was flying up when you're level 4. So the damage was mostly nerfed. Sonya's still going to have a presence. She's still great. It's just that it's not as much as it was.
Right, and it needed to happen. It is probably my favorite hero to play right now, has been for quite a while. But she was just too damn effective. Slam build was too good. I do fear for it in only a selfish sense that I never want to go back to Whirlwind Sonya. I find that to be the most uninteresting build among a long history of uninteresting builds. I just don't want to spin.
And I think this new Shattered Ground is that much more interesting. We'll get into it next week. Super speedy mode now. Diva, big full metal nerf across the kit. If you love that talent, you might struggle a little bit. May, solid mini nerf to her survivability. Mm-hmm. Falstad got his bugs fixed as well as a nerf at the same time. So Falstad might disappear from the game, though. That's the problem. Bugs were keeping him very powerful and nerfing him at the same time. Could just mean Falstad's done.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is a nerf, but also we may actually, I don't know, figure out where Falstad fits into the meta permanently.
Celebrate Asmodan's split push got a nerf. He's now easier to play, though, because you don't have to be as finicky about hitting his orbs.
Fair enough.
Uther, this is the first real nerf to tank Uther, affecting the armor he receives from his own heals. And Lost Vikings, they added a bunch of health in order to make them better during this XP Globe meta. Now that Vikings is doing fine, they're taking that back by half. And Lucio, they're changing him, but they didn't touch the main things that are causing him to be so prevalent in the meta in tournament play. So Lucio will be around. He's just going to be a tiny bit different.
Yeah, this is the closest thing I think we've seen to a traditional underpicked talent, shoring up. People yell at me because I say shoring. I know it's shoring. Man.
It's regional. Like I say fur. I hate that I say fur. What do you want that for? That's dumb. But you know what? I grew up in Virginia.
Fur? I don't really think of a difference between those two, but fair enough. Nonetheless.
Four. Like I'm going, I want to do that for you. I say for you.
Oh.
Because I grew up in those Appalachians.
Well, there you go, Appalachian man. There you go. And there you go into the Nexus listeners. We're going to, we'll get into more of the number crunchy mathy bits next week. But there's your lay of the land. A lot of things are changing. A lot of us are going back to Heroes School. after this patch, methinks. I certainly am. Definitely going back to Rexar as well. And I need to figure out what to do when a freaking Chen shows up.
Oh my goodness, they added a spray where Raynor puts on sunglasses.
Oh, Kyle.
I need it. All right, I'm very excited about all that stuff. By the time we talk to y'all next, this all might be live, so good luck to you.
Yeah, let us know how it's landing for you. If you are a hardcore player of a hero that we don't particularly play, let us know your thoughts. I especially want to hear from some Stitches players. Let me know if you're excited about this, and then after you play it, let me know how you think it's landing. Write in itncast@gmail.com, and if you are supporting us over at patreon.com/itn, you can skip the inbox entirely. Just write us right there in the patron Discord. And don't be afraid to tag us either. That's totally fine.
Oh, no, wait, this is fake. Oh, it's a fake. What were you doing faking stuff? The faking stuff on the Reddit again, Garrett.
The fake. We just got real shit. What are you doing?
Real stuff?
Stop it. Stop it.
I think it's fake. Okay, never mind. I'll be okay.
Lame. Anyways, that's it. You want to support us? Check out patreon.com/ITN. Speaking of our wonderful, wonderful patrons, we want to give a shout out to our producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, Chris K, and Sean B. Want to become a producer? Check out the Patreon. You can catch the show on Twitter at ITNcast. We post updates and whatnot over there. If we ever change the schedule, that's where you're going to know about it. Join us live Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/amovetv. But other than that, Kyle, where can people find you when you're not doing Into the Nexus?
You can find me across the web at KyleFergusson.com, where a new mailbag episode is up of DMGI, the Learn to Play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition show. Also check out There Will Be Dungeons, the D&D live play show, which this weekend is guested by Brian Dunaway, which, as my players aren't here, and if they're listening, I'm sorry for the spoiler, but he's going to be playing Demolition, a demolition thief for our big heist, and I'm really excited about it.
I hope you turned the podcast off fast enough, John. Folks, I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. You can follow me on there, and you can find this and every single other podcast that I produce over at amove.tv. That's AMOVE.tv. Go check it out. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Into the Nexus. Until next week, good luck and have fun in your games, everyone.
Take care.